Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your host, Anthony King, and in this episode, I'm going to take a deep dive into the Mandalorian Season 3 premiere episode titled The Apostate. Before we get started, I'm inviting you to join the conversation with us. We can be found on Twitter and Hive at Force Ghost Pod. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok just by searching Force Ghost Conversations. We look forward to connecting with you on those platforms. Also, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your listening site of choice. Plus, Force Ghost Conversations is now live on Patreon. If you're a fan of the podcast and would like to consider pledging your support, there will be a link in the episode description for you to check out the various tiers offered. Finally, please be sure to check out our TeePublic store to buy some Force Ghost Conversations merchandise. And without further ado, it's time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. Welcome back to another episode of Force Ghost Conversations, folks. And golly gee, what an amazing time it is to be a Star Wars fan. I know I've been saying this for weeks leading up to this point, but we're finally in the thick of it all. It is March. It is the Mandalorian Season 3 time. Bad Batch Season 2 is going just at the same rate, right beside it there. And of course, Star Wars Celebration is fast approaching in April. Plus, the upcoming book, I believe it's called Battle Scars or something to that extent. The Sam Maggs story that is the prequel to um, Jedi Survivor is coming out this month. Thankfully, the game isn't coming out this month yet, so that we're not overloaded with Star Wars content this month. But man, what an amazing time it is to be a Star Wars fan for sure. And I can imagine Star Wars Celebration will be the ultimate cherry on top as we get closer to that convention date. So more to come on that, as I'm sure we'll be involved in a lot of different things happening over the course of the celebration weekend. So get ready for all that. I think I got some ideas coming up for how we can keep an engaged community together during the course of the convention, even though many of us probably won't be over in London for that endeavor. But we'll have a lot of fun here at home, CouchCon, if you will, and it's going to be a blast. So before we get into our obvious Mandalorian discussion here, I just wanted to run through some of the news, of course, for the Star Wars galaxy and Lucasfilm of it all in our appropriately dubbed Cloud City Gossip segment. Now, first, The Mandalorian Season 3 is here, folks. Go watch it on Disney Plus now, and stay tuned to the other side of this conversation here, where we, of course, will be doing a deep dive into all of it. So this is the spoiler warning for the next portion. I know I forget to do that pretty frequently here on the podcast because I'm just so darn excited to talk about it all and to get into the nitty-gritty of it. So you've been warned. Go watch the episode now, or pause this podcast, go watch the episode, come right back to this moment, and be ready to talk. Also, in celebration, Star Wars has announced a new merchandise release strategy called Mando Mania. And in that, each Tuesday, new products will be revealed featuring our heroes Din Djarin and Grogu. The reveals will be available on StarWars.com for your review then, so if you want to check all that out, go there. Finally, Michelle Ang and Simon Cassianides, I hope I got that right, Simon Cassianides, have been announced as guests for Star Wars Celebration and adding, incredible names to that already magnificent roster of guests for the convention. And with the celebration fast approaching, if you're going, be sure to sign up, I would say probably now, for your autograph and photo opportunities so that they do not sell out. Of course, if you've been following the podcast, you'll know that our most recent episode this past Wednesday was basically a London 101 conversation with, of course, Mercedes Gleason from the Chat Disney podcast. As she is based in the UK, she works in London when she's in office, and she's been to the Excel Center many times for various opportunities and conventions. So if you're heading to Star Wars Celebration Europe in a couple weeks, definitely go check out that podcast episode so that you can stay up to date with all the things that are happening around that, how to get there, tips and tricks about visiting London, where to eat, all that good information is discussed in the episode, so you don't want to miss that out. And of course, go check out Mercedes' podcast, the Chat Disney podcast, where she and her co-host Tash break down all of the stuff in the Walt Disney universe, whether it be parks, Marvel, Pixar, the Disney Animation Studio, the live action stuff, Disney Plus. It's all there. It's a great podcast. Wonderful conversations on there all the time. It has my seal of approval. So be sure to go check out their shows regularly and subscribe to them. Leave them a review. Do all the fun stuff that you usually do for Force Ghost Conversations, but over there. And on the other side of this break, we'll be back, everybody, getting ready to discuss our wonderful episode that we just got this week, The Apostate, Chapter 17 of The Mandalorian. Stay tuned. All right, everybody, it is main event time. It is time to talk all about The Apostate. Chapter 17, the Season 3, Episode 1 premiere of The Mandalorian. Wow. I'm just amazed that we're finally at this point, because when we started this podcast, we were in that gray area between a new Star Wars show, a new Star Wars content, and within 2 months of the podcast, so remember, we started in November of 2021. And within two months, we had the Book of Boba Fett. And we have been going full steam ahead ever since. So we had Obi-Wan Kenobi, Andor, Bad Batch, Willow, of course, in there too. Don't forget that. And now we're finally at the bread and butter that launched Disney Plus back in November of 2019. The Mandalorian. And my goodness, folks, we're back in style. I loved this episode. I loved everything about it. And it brought me warm feelings again to be reunited with our friends, the Mandalorian and Grogu. It is incredible how much these characters have so quickly captivated the Star Wars fan base and this audience and had such mass appeal that I don't think any other Disney Plus show has had to this point in time. Perhaps WandaVision is the only thing that I can think of that has captivated an audience just as much as this show has, but it's really taken the world by storm. It's fascinating when you think about it because this show came out pre-pandemic, but the pandemic certainly must have helped the show's popularity grow in many ways because people were able, with a lot of time at home, to catch up on shows, to watch things, to follow up with all of the Star Wars content. So in a way, maybe the show was helped by the fact that a lot of us were in quarantine or at home in various ways during the pandemic and had the time in order to get acquainted with these characters. I think it was to the benefit of The Mandalorian for sure, and as a part of the fandom, as a member of it, as someone that is in the community daily, I feel warm again knowing that my friends are back with me in a way. So I hope you have had a similar experience at home. I'd love to hear what your feelings are about having The Mandalorian back in your Disney Plus queues at this point. But let's get into The Apostate. And where I wanted to start here is the definition of an apostate. And of course, this comes from Google, which is a person. So it's a noun, of course. It's a person who renounces a religious or political belief or principle. And of course, this refers back to the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian, where Grogu was being delivered to Luke Skywalker, who is the Jedi that saved them in that climactic final battle aboard Moff Gideon's ship. And Grogu decides to go with Luke to train more, to learn more about the Force, to reacquaint himself with his lost memories about the Force and being a Jedi and being in the Jedi Temple, of course. And in doing so, Din thought that he was never going to see Grogu again. With that, he made the conscious choice that he wanted to see him with his own eyes in a way, right? Similar to Anakin at the end of Return of the Jedi. Let me look upon you with my own eyes. He takes off the helmet. He also wants Grogu to know what he looked like in case this is the last time they ever saw each other. And it's one of the most powerful moments in all of cinema. Not in cinema, but let's just say Star Wars, right? It's a very powerful moment. These two have had such incredible adventures and journeys together. And to leave it at that, I mean, wow. That's a cliffhanger there for the next season. Of course, we got that interlude of The Mandalorian in the Book of Boba Fett where the story is pushed further in there. We see the Mandalorian return again. He helps Boba Fett in his trial on Tatooine there in Mos Espa. They are reunited, Din and Grogu. And now in season 3, the purpose of Din's journey is to be redeemed. To go back to Mandalore to bathe in these waters underneath the mines and to become one with his faith again. This is where we're going in this season, folks. So we're going back to Mandalore one way or the other. And the groundwork is set very well in this first episode, if you ask me. The Apostate, chapter 17, if you will, of The Mandalorian is directed by Rick Famuyiwa and written by Jon Favreau. Now, Rick Famuyiwa previously did work on season 1 and season 2 of The Mandalorian. He was, of course, a part of that Mandalorian roundtable, of course, the Gallery Disney Plus series, which is phenomenal as well, for giving a lot of great behind-the-scenes details about The Mandalorian, how the show is put together, the amazing creatives behind the scenes putting this work on screen. And now he is a part of the creative process in a greater role. He was elevated to an executive producer, I believe, or just a producer. I mean, he's heavily involved with it. And the fact that he got to direct this first episode is incredible. Now, with Dave Filoni, of course, is a part of The Mandalorian. Still, him and John are very much at the centerpiece of it all. But I think with Dave working on Ahsoka, this was smart bringing Rick up and giving him a promotion, basically, into this new role, where he gets to have more say in the room and all that stuff. I will always say, like, that episode, chapter 2, with the Mudhorn, is one of the best episodes of The Mandalorian, if you ask me. It is quiet, but the emotional beats of it all are just, they resonate throughout the rest of the series. So the groundwork laid by it is incredible. And I think that Rick Famuyiwa is the right guy to be given this promotion, to elevate his creative ideas in such a way. And frankly, I want to start at the beginning of the episode with my thoughts here. What a start, by the way. It was like a baptism, if you will, into the Mandalorian will. Or not the Mandalorian will, but also the lore itself of this group, the Children of the Watch. And it's so neat to see the armor once again in full action. Not necessarily just action, right? We see her charge that creature, but she's what her main purpose is for the story, creating the armor of the Mandalorians. Wow. Molding that Beskar into something of protection, of comfort, of defense. And she molds his helmet for this foundling. I think it was important, too, that we, as the audience, see this important ritual of subscribing oneself to the ways of the Mandalorian. And of course, it's pomp and circumstance, but it's important nonetheless. And it's great for world building, if you ask me. This is the way. Did anyone else have like an inkling of a sense that this sequence was like a flashback for maybe Din Djarin for when he put on the mask? Not the mask, but maybe the mask, the helmet, if you will. It kind of felt like that to me at first. I was like, this kid doesn't really look like Pedro Pascal, but you know, you never know. But it appears that it is a different child taking up this mantle, joining the Children of the Watch, becoming a part of this group. And again, it's a rebirth into a new culture. It's literally a way of life, a baptism, if you will. And then that big alligator takes its toll on the ceremony. As Mrs. Forsko's Conversations, who was beside me when we watched this episode together for the first time, Elise King, she said the team really did their homework on how gators operate. It was like a quick action piece, and the creature emerged out of the water so briskly. Despite the best efforts of those both on the ground and taking to the sky, the Mandalorians a part of this ceremony, only one could intervene to save the day. And of course, that was Din Djarin in his fresh, new Naboo N1 starfighter from the Book of Boba Fett. It was beautiful hearing that theme once again. And in this point, I want to say congrats to Joseph Shirley, by the way, on taking over the mantle of composer for the show from Ludwig Göransson. It's good for him. Glad to see that he's getting more work. He did great on the Book of Boba Fett, and it seems like that baton has been passed off here, while Ludwig goes to do other activities for his own creative gain. Din Djarin, as I mentioned before, is seeking redemption. He says, quote, "The creed teaches us of redemption. And what if the mines of Mandalore still exist?" He wonders. He must bathe in the living waters underneath the mines in order to gain this redemption that he's so long he seeks. He's looking for that. He wants it. He needs it in order to become part of this group, this family again that he has been so powerful to him, that gave him purpose out of his destruction of his real family. Now, of course, there's the question of what about the surface of Mandalore, because we hear that it's been poisoned. You can go there, you can't go there. It's terrible, what have you. We're getting a lot of mixed messages across the episode here from both the armorer, the Jawas that have quote unquote been there, and Bo-Katan, who we'll see at the end of the episode. But from what Din has, he has this little piece that has some Mandalorian writing on it. It appears that the surface maybe has been crystallized by the fusion rays, right, from the night of a thousand tears. Incredible. And so perhaps it isn't poisonous. Din really just wanted confirmation, though, about the process to redemption, which I thought it was always good to get like a double confirmation from your boss before embarking on a new project, right? You always want to just double check yourself before something major could go wrong or you're off kilter, right? He just wanted to make sure he's right. You know, this is the way to get redemption, right? Just making sure. I wanted to make sure that I was on point here with what exactly we were talking about here. So Din goes off to Navarro, right? He needs something else from Grief Karga, and of course that will be eventually IG-11. But wow, on the way there, folks, we're in hyperspace, and Rebels fans unite. Purgles, a lot of Purgle. Purgle in the sky. And of course, Purgle are the space whales. If just Google them, if you're not familiar, go to Wikipedia, Google some Purgle, watch Star Wars Rebels. I believe it's season 2. Of course, they'll appear in season 4 as well. They are space whales that can go travel at hyperspace. And boy, are they important to the show. Maybe that's a tease for Ahsoka. But I mean, wow, I never thought that I'd see those in live action. But Dave Filoni is just really dropping some keys, some hints here and there. We're having a lot of fun. Nothing is off limits anymore in the Star Wars galaxy and universe now, between the films, books, television. If it's canon, it's possible. It's time to get with it all, if you ask me. And boy, that's just a lot of fun. I about geeked out so much seeing that, because again, what that could mean for future storytelling. The possibilities are really limitless when you think about it, especially now that the Purgle are able to become a part of a live action universe. Also, I think it's understated here, but the connection between Din and Grogu is powerful. Now, the attachment may have a cost, but we'll have to keep checking in on that as the season progresses. I mentioned that Din goes off to Navarro, of course, the planet from season 1 that is very pivotal to everything. That Grief Karga is now the magistrate of, High Magistrate. Navarro keeps getting a facelift every season, and I frankly am here for it. Things have never looked better than under Greef Karga's rule. Even this memorialization to IG-11, the droid that self-sacrificed itself so that Din Djarin, Grogu, Greef Karga, and Cara Dune can escape from the grips of these Empire stormtroopers and Moff Gideon. I loved it. I love that means of memorialization. I mean, the fact that that they're at this place now where they have schools, they're able to reflect on how they got to this point. I think Greef Karga is really doing great. He's doing excellent work. It's never been better than under his rule, of course. And of course, he's the High Magistrate now. I hope that he keeps every season when we go back to Navarro. Not only does it keep getting better in terms of its like wealth and status and how it portrays itself, the culture aspect of it all, but I hope he just keeps adding more titles to it, right? I think I joked with Mrs. Forska's conversations about it. I was like, what's next? High Exalted Magistrate, Greef Karga, His Highness, High Exalted Magistrate, Greef Karga. Like, let's just keep going. Let's just make this an exorbitant, unfathomable long name. I love that he had droids, too, to keep his cape from dragging on the floor. That's what every bride needs, right? When they're with their wedding dress, their gown, what have you, when they're walking down the aisle. It seems like it'd be a very helpful invention for our real world. Greef Karga offers Din an opportunity, though. A plot of land, very valuable land, something that could be profitable for him, something that means he can hang up his blaster and all that, relax, be with him and Grogu. But will the Mandalorian ever settle down? Is that something in his long-term plan? Is that even in the cards? I don't know. I'll have to ponder that one. I don't know what the Mandalorian's end goal is. I mean, he's frankly still thinking about his life. He had his life before Grogu. Then he had his life while he was on this quest with Grogu. And then he finished that. He sent Grogu off. And now Grogu's back, of course, but now he has this new quest where it is, I gotta redeem myself. I did something that is wrong, but I think it was right in the moment. And now I have to get back good with my religion, my sect, my group. I got to get back good with them, and then I can figure out what I want to do next. So I don't know if he's at a place yet where he even is pondering what is my quote-unquote future. Now, there is a band of pirates in Navarro at this point in time. They're trying to rouse some rabble in this place. They're just causing trouble. They're stirring up a lot of issues here. And it's led by this guy named Vane. High Magistrate Karga is keeping a tight ship here on Navarro. Pirates aren't too welcome anymore, especially this group that are under the group of Captain Gorian Shard, the Pirate King, a big man in the pirate world. I was half expecting Hondo to show up at this point, but we got another pirate guy. Maybe we'll get some Hondo later in the season. And I love that they had a high noon shootout in The Mandalorian. It's very gunslinger of it all. Something that is akin to the stories, the samurai, the Western stories that inspired this series and just Star Wars overall. We got a little note here from Greef Karga about exactly where Cara Dune went. We get some just tidbits of canon here. Now, of course, Cara Dune, the actress, I forget her name. I forget the actress's name right now. Let me pull that up here. Sorry if you hear any typing, but I just wanted to make sure that I got that right. Gina Carano, of course. Yes. My apologies for forgetting that. But of course, the role has been quietly put aside for the moment. I don't think that Gina Carano will come back to Star Wars. I'm not going to really comment on all that stuff, but of course, I believe, if rumors are to be corrected, it's never been publicly stated, but I believe she may have been just fired from the role for some comments that she made on Twitter, etc. And they basically confirmed here where the character's been at, and since we last saw her at the end of season 2 here, They said that Cara Dune has been recruited by special forces from the New Republic. We also got a slight update about where Moff Gideon is at right now, and of course, the New Republic has taken him. He's under a war tribunal right now, so maybe that comes back later. We have seen Coruscant in some of the trailers for The Mandalorian to this point, so I gotta think that that's coming back into play somehow with Moff Gideon, Dr. Pershing. That all must be involved in the plans somewhere back here. But again, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, Din is really here for IG-11. And it's amazing that they really had enough parts to make a statue, let alone to bring him back to life, which seemed rather Pet Cemetery-esque to me. Frankly, though, it makes sense that Din is only allowing this droid to be a part of his schemes to going back to Mandalore, right? He wants to use a droid that he can trust, which was thus far only IG-11, because of the caretaking work that he did for Grogu. He helped him when he needed assistance at the end of season 1. And of course, the self-sacrifice he made in order for them to escape and to survive. Very powerful. And now IG-11 is parts are scattered across Navarro, and they were able to save very little of it. But I guess the point is that you don't know if it's poisonous or not, so send in a droid to do the work, and then if it's seemed like it's safe, or deemed that it is safe, I should say, then Din and Grogu can go to the surface of Mandalore and see what's up. But, of course, the protocol for IG-11 reverts back to his old bounty hunter systems, when Kuiil made him a nurse droid. And that sequence was so Terminator-inspired to me. Frankly, we got a lot of Jim Cameron-inspired Star Wars in the episodes this week. So both The Bad Batch and The Mandalorian had bits of the Terminator and Aliens, of course, from James Cameron's work here. Definitely an inspiration, I would imagine. I loved also either the stop motion or puppetry work that was done here. And I thought it was a funny moment, too, with the bust of Grief Karga taking him out, right? That's using your head, as Din Djarin said. It's probably quite the oversight, thinking that, right, he wouldn't default back to that. He's a droid. Most droid systems default back to a primary setting. That would be kind of my thought there. And of course, the powers that be, Din is smart and recognizes that he can't do this all on his own. But of course, on Navarro, there are Anzellans, the alien species, the creature species, if you will, that Babu Frick from The Rise of Skywalker, Episode 9, is that's the creature type. Hey. I don't think that one of these folks in the Anzellan station, their workspace, is Babu Frick. I'm not been able to confirm that yet. I don't think it has been confirmed, but maybe one of them is Babu. IG-11, in order to be brought back and to be made into whatever semblance that he was before, he needs a new memory bank for that to be fixed. So Din is now on a search to find that in order to make this possible. Also, Grogu needs to cool down around the Anzellans. He was a bad baby indeed in that sequence. He basically just like bear hugs the Anzellan, thinking it's a toy, a stuffed animal, maybe even some food. That's not great, but I gotta tell you, that was really great. And also, in their escape from Navarro, when they're going off to Calavella, the effects on the effects on the Mandalorian just keep getting better to me. That space fight, I mean, come on. That is some peak Star Wars flight action. The rocket turret on Gorian Shard's ship, whatever that is, capital ship, destroyer, etc. It looked fantastic to me. I thought that visual effect looked really, really good. And then Gorian Shard himself is an interesting species for sure. I need that action figure now, though. The creature is very inspired by Swamp Thing from DC Comics, a little bit of Man-Thing from Marvel Comics, almost like a walking mossy tree, if you will. That, to my knowledge, is the first time we've seen this species in Star Wars canon. And I'm hoping that he comes back in some way, shape, or form. I don't think this is just a castaway character. Maybe this pirate bit is something that comes up a lot more throughout the season as another foil to all this. So I'm very hopeful that this is just tip of the iceberg when it comes to all that. Now, at the end part of the episode, we're at Kalabella, which is another planet in the Mandalorian system according to Din Djarin. We see a Mandalorian castle too. We're getting a lot of Mandalore lore in this episode. So we're seeing a birth at the beginning, right? A baptism, a rebirth, if you will, of this Mandalorian culture that is thriving and surviving, or at least trying to. And then at the end, you see a defeated, deflated Bo-Katan. She's almost given up. She's ready to just live there, be stuck in the past, in a version of the past that she's set for herself, and wallow in it. What a contrast, right? She's there talking about how the cult and the factions, the Children of the Watch, ruined everything, while they're, at the beginning of the episode, not overly concerned about it. They don't care that they're not on Mandalore. Mandalore is a creed, not necessarily a people or a race or a planet. They're going to survive and thrive wherever they're at. Whether it be Navarro, that ring that they are at in the Book of Boba Fett, or now this new planet that they're on, where a freaking alligator comes out of the water, giant alligator, and tries to eat them all. Bo-Katan and Din are still at odds, clearly here. When she returned without the Darksaber, her forces melted away, basically. The stolen fleet is now making its way across the galaxy as mercenaries. And the Darksaber is still pivotal to leadership. It is whatever, culturally wise, people still can't get over that you need that. And you need to win it in ritual combat in order to have it and rule Mandalore. Again, she blames the Children of the Watch and all the other factions for why they're there now. And who else is getting Daenerys vibes with that, right? Daenerys Targaryen from Game of Thrones, the Mad Queen. I mean, how can you not when you're thinking about that castle? Does that not look very similar to Dragonstone? I think so. Also, I'll tell you what, I think that wig for Bo-Katan is the best wig. Katie Sackhoff looks really great in that wig, and it just flows a lot better than what we had in season 2 of The Mandalorian. So that's great. Good to everybody involved with that. Production team, makeup, hair, all that. Really good job. Now she says, go ahead, Din Djarin, go back to the planet's surface, see what you could find there. It'll be beneath the Civic Center in the city of Sendari. That's where the living waters underneath the mines are located. And she's like, is the planet poisoned? I don't know. She just seems so disinterested right now. She just says, goodbye, Din Djarin. She's almost very, soft and plain about it. She doesn't even care. She's lost. And this could be the breaking point for Bo-Katan, right? In season 2, she was a bit more active, a bit more upfront about things. And now, that seems to be a frailty of where she was before. But wow, that is an A+ episode, everybody. A lot of tip of the iceberg storytelling that I have a feeling we're going to dive into a lot more throughout the course of the 8-episode season. And who knows where we're going to end up by the point of all this, right? We got the Darksaber at the end of season 1. We got Luke Skywalker at the end of season 2. Where in the world are we going to end with season 3? I don't know. Give me all of it right now. But for that, folks, this is all what I had for this week's episode. What did you think about The Mandalorian? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let's talk about it. Follow us up on all the social media channels, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Hive, YouTube, TikTok. We're there. We're ready to chat about The Mandalorian. We're ready to chat about Bad Batch, Star Wars Celebration, Jedi Survivor. Let's have a good time talking about all of the great Star Wars content that is available to us right now. Also, if you feel so inclined, share the show with your friend. Now's the time to get involved with Force Ghost Conversations. The Mandalorian has started. We still got Bad Batch discussions too. That'll come out next Wednesday with Mrs. Force Ghost Conversations continuing to join us weekly on that discussion. So get ready for all that. It's another great episode, Metamorphosis, that we'll talk about. Leave us a rating, a review. It really helps to grow the show. Be sure you subscribe to our podcast feed on your favorite site of choice so that you don't miss out on an episode. And of course, we have merchandise, TeePublic. Go check out our TeePublic store to get our, Force Ghost Conversations merchandise, our Star Wars inspired logo, our Willow inspired logo, Indiana Jones inspired logo. All that stuff is available on our TeePublic site for you to check out and get some cool stuff. Finally, if you feel so inclined, we have a Patreon where you can get access to a lot of different Star Wars, Willow, Indiana Jones, all the fun stuff, goodies that you can get for as little as $1 a month, right? So there's a lot of tiers available. We've got, I think, 4 right now that you can go check out. And, if you feel so inclined, pledge your support. We really appreciate it. But until then, we'll be back very soon with a brand new episode talking all about the new episode of The Bad Batch this week. And then we'll be back again weekly with Mandalorian episodes. We're going to do a couple episodes of Force Ghost Conversations a week as we got multiple Star Wars things going on at once, and they deserve talking about for sure. So until then, we'll be back very soon, folks. May the Force be with you. Take care.